Alrighty, welcome to our Herpes Simplex Type 1 presentation. I'm Brenna Grubbs. I'm originally from Illinois, and I'm studying nursing.
I'm Jack. I'm from Washington State. I'm studying electrical engineering.
I'm Michael Wynn. I'm living in Washington State right now, and I am doing this class for a prereq for grad school.
I'm Nathan Burton. I'm up at BYUI, and I'm a human bio major. So, just to start off the presentation, we have the etiology of the virus. So the herpes simplex virus type 1, or HSV1, is a member of the alpha herpes viridae subfamily. The capsid of the virus is icosahedral, and it is 100 to 110 nanometers in diameter. The shell that makes up the capsid contains 6 different proteins as the structural components, and the HSV1 virus is also surrounded by a spiky envelope. The genome of the virus is a double-stranded DNA genome, and when the HSV1 penetrates into the cell directly through the plasma membrane, it first interacts via its spike glycoproteins with the heparin sulfate chains on the cell surface. This reaction requires a focused action between 3 additional glycoproteins. It's triggered by the binding of a protein to its cognate receptors. It then releases its capsid into the cytosol of a host cell by fusing with the plasma membrane. The capsid is then transported to the nucleus, where it docks to the nuclear pore complexes. And the viral genome is rapidly released into the nucleoplasm at that point.
Reservoir and transmission. HSV1 is only carried in humans. Other animals, such as your pet dog and cat, they can have their own herpes virus, but these are different diseases and you cannot infect one or each other. However, there's marmosets, which are kind of like the smaller monkeys. You can transfer HSV1 to them, and it's barely deadly, and they can die. And I thought it was interesting that dogs, they have something called fading puppy syndrome, and this is when they have canine herpes virus, and that's what it's caused by. And so the herpes virus is stored in the trigeminal nerve ganglion. In the first 24 hours of when someone is getting the disease, it very rapidly hits to the nerve through what's called axonal transport. And so it uses the central nervous system to get to transfer through axons, which are kind of like neurons, and then once it gets there, it's safe, and the body can't do anything about it pretty much. And HSV1, also known as cold sores, it's very common. 3.7 billion people have it globally, and according to the World Health Organization, and it's very evenly distributed across all different countries. I'm sure it's a little higher in other places than others, but it's pretty much everyone has it pretty evenly across the world. And HSV1 is mostly transmitted through oral-to-oral contact with either the sore, saliva, or areas near the mouth. And this virus can't live outside of the body very long, so it has to be human touch with each other for it to be transferred. And there's something called neonatal herpes, and this is in babies, and sometimes they can get it from their mother when they have it's still HSV1, not the STD, but if they have it, they can transfer it to their kids, and it's very dangerous for the baby.
So signs and symptoms. Signs are outward appearances of the disease, and symptoms are inward, what other people can't see. So a sign of oral herpes would be the typical cold sore or ulcers that are in or around the mouth. And a symptom of that would be itching, burning, or tingling that comes as the sore is starting to develop. Genital herpes is also another sign. Usually it's caused by HSV2, but it can be caused by HSV1 in rare cases. And that is genital or anal ulcers or blisters. And then there's also herpes gladiatorum, which is also called mat herpes, and it's usually caused by contact sports. and it's ulcers on the fingers, thumbs, face, ears, and neck. It's kind of just like cold sores, but it can be spread out everywhere. And that's a picture of me having a cold sore because it's pretty common.
Latent infections, herpes can cause latent infections. Latent infections are characterized by an initial infectious period. This is often followed by a dormant period in which the viruses are not being produced. Later in life, the virus can be reactivated to produce, in some cases, different disease symptoms. HSV-1 can produce a brief infection, for example, cold sores. During this infection, the virus infects sensory nerves and establishes itself in the root ganglia. Later in life, environmental stresses, fever, or sunburn can reactivate the HSV-1. Newly synthesized HSV-1 particles are produced, which are carried to the skin via the nerve axon, and then cold sores are produced again. And to prevent herpes, you can use lip balm such as HL30, chapstick, apply moisturizers, avoid contact with people that are infected with herpes. And like we said before, kissing or physical touch is the most common ways herpes are passed between people. And then for treatment, herpes can be treated, but is never completely gone. Once you get it, you'll always have it. It hides in nerve fibers. Acyclovir is the #1 antiviral medication for herpes. It acts as a fake nucleotide and will stop the DNA replication. Famciclovir and valacyclovir can also be used. Some home remedies include garlic, aloe vera, tea tree oil, tea bags, toothpaste, ice, yogurt, hydrogen peroxide, whole milk, and licorice.
So here then we have a case study for a typical case of the HSV-1 virus. So a 21-year-old female visited for evaluation of multiple blisters that had risen on her lips. The patient had first noted the blisters 1 day earlier. She reported that since the onset, the blisters had increased in number. In addition, she stated that the lesions were sore and itchy. The patient denied the presence of any intraoral lesions, but mentioned a previous episode of this happening before. A review of the patient's medical history revealed no significant findings of this having been recorded before. So based on the clinical information presented, the most likely diagnosis for this is HSV-1 oral herpes.
So for interesting facts, it was crazy how much these were all spread out in the different uses or findings that they've found with HSV-1. So they found a link with Alzheimer's patients. They did brain tissue scans on people who had passed away from dementia or Alzheimer's, and it showed severe herpes in the brain, and it's connected to the APOE4 gene. That usually people who have that gene are at higher risk for getting cold sores, and it's also connected to a lot of people with Alzheimer's have that gene. Like Jack said, HSV-1 can be transmitted during birth. So if it's the mother's first time infection, a lot of the times it's with genital herpes and blisters in the birth canal, but genital herpes can also be caused by HSV-1, and it leads to neurological disabilities or even death of the child. They've researched where it possibly originated from. They have 6 clades. Those are like ancestors of the disease, like common ancestors, and they've seen it in Africa, Asia, North America, and Europe, but I guess a lot of them were from Africa, so that's where they say it's from. And they've also started trying to use it in curing cancer. So they take TVEC, which is a form of HSV-1, and they inject it into the cancer tumors, and it causes the cancer cells to lysis, and then the immune system to be activated to get rid of it faster. And they had this one guy who used this treatment on a tumor in his wrist, and it significantly went down. it didn't get rid of it, but it lowered the symptoms of his tumor. And they're going to do a clinical trial on using it for like stage 3 breast cancer, I think.